how's it going? I'm Jack St. James from Avec Sans, and I'm going to be taking you through how I use the Novation Launchpads live, not only as a MIDI controller, but also to display a light show whilst we perform. So on stage we have 3 Launchpads, all 3 of them on stands and are mounted facing towards the audience. And then on those each of those Launchpads I have different soft synths or samplers depending on what song I'm playing. And also that's where I send MIDI to the Launchpads and they light up into whatever pattern I've programmed in. So in the video I'm going to take you through a brief look at the Ableton session and how it all works, and then I want to give you a tutorial on how to make your own light show for your own Launchpad. So let's open up the Ableton session. So this is the session from one of our latest shows that we played with Little Boots at Heaven in London. We have playback, backing vocals and vocoder, a vocal channel so I can monitor the vocals live in my in-ears, because I do it all through mix control. I have Launchpad left, middle and right. This is where I have all my chain selectors and instrument racks for all the soft synths that I use live and samplers. So if you see down here, all the different synths. I have my Impulse 49 similarly set up, drum pads. These 3 channels here, lights, left, middle and right, are where I have all the MIDI, which I've programmed in to trigger the light show, but I'll go through that in the tutorial in a bit. And then I have these 3 channels here, which are for the feedback with velocity plugins on them, so that when I push the button, it feeds back red. Need people to know that I'm actually performing live, and it just looks really cool as well. And then I have a click track for my in-ears, and then an intro track for the beginning of our performance. So the session is broken down into these sort of big color blocks here, and these blocks represent different parts of the song. So as we goes through the song, I have follow actions on each clip, so that after say 8 bars, it moves to the next clip and plays. What this means is that on tracks like on Shiver here, that as the track is moving through, it launches these clips here. Now what these clips have on them are automation or chain selectors. So by launching that clip, the chain selector automatically moves the track, moves the instrument rack to the correct soft synth. So at the moment you can see that the chain selector is on 0 there. When I launch Shiver, it should, you see that dot move there. So now the correct synth is now loaded for that song. So essentially what that means is that when we're playing live, I don't need to worry about anything but pressing play. And the beauty of it is that Ableton will set up all the soft synths across my Impulse 49 and all 3 Launchpads at the correct volume with the reverbs, the delays, everything I have on there programmed in, so I can really replicate what I do on the recordings live. I think that's kind of it. Any questions, let me know in the comments. Now let's get to the tutorial and show you how you can set up your own light show on your Launchpad. Alright, so here we are in a fresh Ableton session. I thought I'd say to start with that I'm not going to take you through the very basics of setting up your Launchpad. There are so many great videos out there showing you how to create MIDI feedback and how to install your Launchpad and make sure that it's set up correctly in Ableton preferences. I'm just purely going to be covering how to create a light show. So on your MIDI channel, you want to select your Launchpad in the MIDI 2 here to your Launchpad. So I only have 1 connected. Usually it's 3 for the live show, but for the purposes of simplicity, I'll show you how to do it just on 1, and then you can expand across to more Launchpads if you want. So what this means is that any MIDI you put onto this channel will be going out of Ableton and then into the Launchpad, and the Launchpad will receive that MIDI note. Audio channel is purely for the playback. So if you press Tab on Ableton, you'll open up the arrangement view and then drag in your track. So I've got one I prepared earlier here. This is our track Heartbreak High. Right, so what we're going to be doing is adding MIDI into this channel here to the MIDI track, which is set up for the Launchpad we have installed. And then once we've done that, I'll show you how to chop it all up and bring it into the clip view. So let's start by creating some MIDI. Now, I'm sure there's an easier way of doing this, but this is the way I've always done it, because I couldn't figure out how to create an actual MIDI track in the session view. So someone let me know in the comments how to do it. Go back to your clip view, arm the track, and go back, and then I just press record, and it creates that little bit of MIDI, which you can then expand. Again, there's a better way. That's just the way I do it. So let's make this a bit bigger. So by arming the MIDI track here in Ableton, what you've also done is meant that when you push a button on the Launchpad, Ableton will then show you on the piano roll which button you're pushing, and this is important, and you'll see why in a second. But first thing to note is make sure you have your Launchpad set to user 1 mode rather than clip launch mode. So like I said, now that you have the track armed, when you push a button, you'll see that relative note appear on Ableton. So what that means is if you want this light to light up, you want that note to have a MIDI note on it. So I guess first things first, kind of figure out what you want to be doing on the Launchpad, what pattern you want it to do. I'm going to do a sort of raindrop type effect, which I do at the beginning of Heartbreak High. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a red light that starts here and then drops down to the bottom. So if you want it to start up there, by pressing that button, you see that that note there, C#6, is lit up. So you want to draw in a MIDI note. Right, so to draw a MIDI note, you can click on the pencil button up here, or Control B if you like shortcuts, and then that will give you your little pencil. And then just simply by clicking on the next to the note which is highlighted, you create a MIDI note. Now if you press play, that note on the Launchpad should light up. See it really, really quickly there. It lit up. So that's the way that's the basic premise of it. You're telling Ableton just to send MIDI to the Launchpad, and that MIDI turns on the LED light. And depending on what velocity you use on that note, depends on what color. So what I mean by that, well, firstly, let's expand that MIDI note so it turns on for a little bit longer. So turn off the pencil tool, which is up here, or Control B again. Let's extend that out. And let's open up the session a little bit and create a loop. Okay. Set it to loop. So that green light is turning on. Now, it's green because at the moment the velocity is 100. So if you want to see what velocity a note is, by holding down Command and hovering over it, you kind of see that 100 appear in the little box above the note. That means the velocity is at 100. So that particular note will play at the velocity of 100. So if you hold down Command and then you click and drag up and down, you can then change the velocity of the note. So I've changed it to 127, and it's now yellow. So by dragging it down, you kind of goes to green, back to yellow, then an orange, and you kind of get the point, and then about 75 is red. So I like the red. So what I want to do is create that red button to move from there to there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten this note because I only want it to flash up quickly. So let's flatten. That's a little quick, so let's double that length. Actually, you know what? I liked it the first time. So after that note, so that button, I want this button to light up. So that is A5. So I'm going to hold down Alt and drag down to A5. So now what you should see is this button, then this button flash up using the velocity 75, which should be red. So, so I've got that bit wrong. It's that note there. It's A5, not A#5. There we go. And then do it again. So I want this note, that note, and then this note. So that is F5. So hold down Alt, click and drag down. And you see it kind of working. Now, some of you might have figured out by moving it down one note, one button, you're going down 4 notes every time, because the Launchpad is set up so that the notes go kind of like that. So once you've kind of got that, you can hold down Alt, click, drag, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there we go. And then once you've got like a basic amount of the MIDI set up and you want the pattern to continue, you can select them all, hold down Alt and drag, and go 1, 2, 3, 4. So now it should go all the way down to the bottom. Perfect. And that's the basic principle of the entire thing, is to find the note you want, see the highlight on the screen, draw in the note, select the color you want it to be, and then repeat again on the next note the next note or where you want it to go, and just keep the pattern going. And then you can start figuring out patterns. You start seeing the way it works. You can copy paste. So let's try creating what's quite cool for me is I always add a slight trail to the notes I create. So if something's moving fast, I don't want it just look like one block moving. I kind of want it to feel a bit more, I don't know if realistic's the word, but it's the word I'm going to use. So what I do is select them all, and then I hold down Alt and I drag it to the right this time. So what would happen now if I just left it is that the note would flash up twice, each button would flash twice. Because it's moving so fast, you don't really, it just looks like 2 notes. So if you hold down Alt, so on these notes, if you hold, Alt, drag it across. If you hold down Command, and then you just lower the velocity by 1, you should see a slightly darker red following the main red dot. And then so you do it again, drag it across, move the velocity down by 1 again, and I always just do it one more time for luck. Oh, went one too far. So you get why I'm calling it the slight raindrop effect. So let's say that after that first raindrop which starts there, I want raindrop to be there. So by pushing the button, and because the track is armed in Ableton, I can see that what I want is the same thing, all the MIDI notes like basically dropping down, but starting at that note. So I select all the notes, remind myself which note I want it to start at, hold down Alt, and I'll drag that to about, let's say, there. So what you should see is a drop going down there, and then around this area, a drop to start up there. There we go, and let's do one for over here. So you can see that the MIDI note down there is highlighting, which means that I need to start the pattern that we created down there. So I'll hold down Alt, and remind myself I've forgotten already. Drag it down. Let's say it started about there. And let's make one for, and slightly off screen. Let's have one start about there, which is E3. Let's start it around there. There. And then let's start another one about there, which is G3. G3. There we go. So we should have the whole Launchpad essentially creating a sort of a raindrop effect. Alright, let's open up the loop a little bit. And that's the kind of the basics of it. So it's slightly time consuming, but like I said, once you start doing it, you sort of start figuring out things like every note as you go down, every note is 4. So once you've kind of got that all in, what I will do is say for this clip here, I will select all of that, consolidate it by pressing Command J. I will then do the same with the MIDI. And then I will drag, if I click on the audio, hold tab, open up clip view, drop it in there, go back, click on the MIDI, tab, MIDI, and then by launching that scene, you'll start the music and then you'll also see the MIDI. So there we go. And then, so that's the very basics of it. And then you'd sort of build it up. You do more MIDI, more patterns. You'd start creating more complex patterns, and you'll start experimenting essentially, and you'll figure it all out. But that's the basics of it. So that's how I do it, and that's how it's done. So I'm Jackson James. Cheers.